Hey guys, it's Kwana back again with another review. It's Sunday night, so you know why we're here. We are here because it's Lovecraft Country Night, which means we were at the penultimate episode of the show. Only one episode left in the series. This episode was titled Rewind 1921, and we all know what that meant. That all meant we were going to be heading back to Tulsa. So let's just dig right on in. Spoiler alert for the show, because I'm going to start with a brief recap. I'm going to try my best to dig into some of the symbols, some of the connections to things past that we've already seen. But I guess just to start with just a generalized rating of the show, this was a very difficult episode to watch. I don't know that I can place this on my list of top 3 episodes this season, because it was heavy, and we all kind of suspected that it was going to be heavy. Where last week there was a very nuanced and sleight of hand dealing with Emmett Till's death. It was more suggested rather than seen, and so we kind of a lot of experiences kind of secondhand through the characters' eyes. Last week dealt more with horror, and this dealt more with reality and sci-fi. And so we jump into the past, into Tulsa, and they did not shy away with the scenes that we saw in this episode at all. And if you those of you who have seen Watchmen, you will recall that Watchmen kind of starts with its own connections to Tulsa, and this was that amped up in many ways. I will say the only difference is that there are more children involved in the imagery of the Watchmen one, so that was kind of hard to deal with. But the scene happens so quickly, and it's like maybe a 5-minute segment, where this is a prolonged anticipatory reaction. Like, you know what you're gonna get. You know that you're arriving in Tulsa on the night of the massacre, and so you spend the whole entire show in suspense of what you're going to see. It was a good episode. Direction wise, it was definitely, like I said, it wasn't my favorite. It was still a strong episode. This show can't really be horrible, but it wasn't my favorite because I do feel like the pacing of the show was a little off. There was so much to try to deal with in this one episode, and I think that in many ways I don't know, this seems kind of weird to say this, because I wanted the action, I wanted the movement, but I think that there were things that needed to be dealt with through the characters and their dialogue that we still haven't gotten, and so it leaves me wanting more. And not in a just a cliffhanger sort of way, but like, I want the characters to deal with some of these issues, and I was a little frustrated that some of those things did not happen. Good episode all around, though. All right, so let's go ahead and just unpack the episode. So it starts right where we left off. They are all at George and Hippolyta's place, and Diana is there, and she is turning into one of the Jigaboo characters, Topsy and Bopsy, from last week after she had gotten infected, and they are trying to figure out what they need to do to help her. Through their arguing over who let this girl down, and then finally Ruby says, "All of you did." A couple of things are brought to light. One is that Letty gave the pages or the photographs of Hiram. That man, his name's not, is it Hiram? Hiram's pages to Christina, and of course it also comes to light that Ruby and Christina have a connection, an entanglement, if you will, and they need to turn to Christina to help Diana. Christina comes over. She says they can kind of perform a restitution kind of spell. She can't really like completely heal her, because the only thing that can do that is the blood of the officer who cast the spell, and of course we saw what happened to him after that Shoggoth got to him last week. So yeah, that's not going to work. They say that they need the blood of the closest relative, which in this case seems to be Montrose as her uncle. But of course, we all know that there is a really good shot that Tick is her closest relative because he is likely her brother. And so they make plans to go ahead and perform this spell. Well, Christina hops her little tail over to Captain Lancaster's place, and we find out that she knew him. He obviously knew her. It wasn't just a situation where she was like he killed William, but he killed William obviously in some type of retribution for wanting to get the power that he possessed, or that regeneration spell, whatever the potion is that she uses to turn into William. That that was what he was after as well. Well, unfortunately, because she placed that stone there, he cannot recover from his condition, and no matter what they do, he just keeps his wounds keep showing up, and he dies. Can't say that I was sad at all, but I still want to know what happened to old dude who was like hanging up in the closet. I don't know if we're ever going to get an answer about that, and I feel like I'm missing some things with that. I don't know about you guys. I definitely need to go back and watch that again and again and again to kind of like connect that storyline. Well, they get ready to perform the spell, but before they do that, we have a little interaction between Montrose and Tick, and who spills the beans about, Tick's true lineage. Well, it's Montrose. He says, I might not be the best person to help Diana. It could be you because you might be George's son. Dun, dun, dun. And I was really sad about the way that that happened at first, because we got that nice little like reunion slash kind of like reconciliation scene last week's episode that was really really sweet between them, and now you've got a big old crater that just has landed in between them, and Tick is pissed, as well he should be. I mean, he should be upset. I mean, they've been lying to him his whole life, and he finds out that his uncle might be his daddy, and his daddy might be dead, and his mama might been was getting it on with both of them, and yeah, all of that. So um they are trying to deal with that, and guess who comes back? Hippolyta. They did a really good job of hiding that from us in the trailer from last week. So I didn't see that coming. I thought we would maybe get Hippolyta in the season finale, or maybe next season if we're blessed enough. But I was really pleasantly surprised, although I felt like, other than um, coming back and finding out that Dee was sick and figuring out, okay, what do we need to do to save her, they didn't really do as much with her character. She does tell them, I have infinite wisdom now, and I can do all of these things. I have this technology, and I know all of these things because I've lived 200 Earth years. I just hope that because of those experiences, she hasn't lost her humanity, because we didn't really see her kind of like, I mean, I guess, as a woman of the world, she's not going to panic about her daughter, but it did feel a little distant in the way that she reacted. And she's definitely like, y'all have screwed this up. Let me take over. I'm going to fix everything. But she still needs them to do their part in everything. And I can't wait to see when she actually shares her experiences, and if we get to see more of her travels, because obviously it wasn't like a quick trip back. She was gone. And I don't know if it was supposed to be where the gap from the episode 7 and now, if it was just like as soon as she gets back, that was the end of her episode. I don't really know how that works. I don't know if there was more going on. And also, big question, where is George? Did she put him back on his original timeline? Where is he? So that'll be interesting to find out. If he kind of evaporated or had to stay in his timeline. I don't really know how that works. Well, anyway, they do the little restoration part, which, oh my gosh, y'all, that was so difficult to look at, to see those maggots coming out of her arm as it was restored from decay, and they turned into flies. Oh my gosh, I can't stand stuff like that. I felt like my skin was crawling. The next thing you know, I saw a bug in the house, and I was like freaking out. Felt like there was stuff crawling on me. I just couldn't deal. It was too much. But they decided they have to go to the observatory, they have to get in the time machine, and they have to get the book, because the book is the only way that Christina can get the necessary spell to actually save Diana. And so they head to the observatory, they open up the portal, and the the devices that were implanted into Hippolyta are still there, and it gives her a charge. She is literally a motherboard, and she charges up the time machine and opens the portal to Tulsa. So Montrose, Letty, and um, I want to call that girl, and Lord Jesus, Tick. I can't think tonight. And Tick head to Tulsa. They get some clothes and they head over to his mom's house. And literally, Montrose and George and Dora grew up right next door to each other. So that was kind of interesting to see the dynamic. We run into the scene where Montrose is getting whipped from his father, and we can kind of get an eyewitness account to the abuse that he experienced as a child, which was really necessary for Tick to see that this cycle of abuse did not begin with Montrose, or it didn't end with him, and it will be up to him to end the cycle of abuse. It gives him a chance to really kind of see where Montrose was coming from and why he felt the need to be as hard handed as he was, because this was the experience that he had to deal with. And we see that Dora is the one who kind of rescues him from his father. And so it explains kind of like the relationship that all three of them had, even before the events of the Tulsa massacre. Um, we also get to see some of Dora's family, and of course, they're the ones that possess, the magic in their family, the Book of Names. And so, um, as things go on, they get separated. Montrose leaves to go and save a young man who he was in love with as a young man and was friends with, and Tick goes after him to keep him from doing anything that changes the future. And Letty goes to Dora's house to try and get the Book of Spells. Um, you really get to see them wrestle with one of the nuances of time travel as it is handled in the literature, which is the idea of like why you can't change the future because it can literally erase you. Now we don't really get too much into that because as and I guess it's because they're visiting a world that is on their plane. The difference with Hippolyta is that it is I can't really we should first of all let's we can't call it a time machine. It is a multiverse machine. And she went to locations that were parallel worlds. And that was why she was able to become a soldier. She was able to become a dancer for Josephine Baker because it wasn't really in her original timeline. So it didn't shift anything. If they change stuff in real Tulsa in their timeline, then they could literally wipe out their own existences. And so we see Montrose really struggle with not being able to help his friend because if he helps his friend and saves his friend, it could literally erase his son. And his son is the person who he's made all of these sacrifices for. It was a really touching scene. Again, it kind of draws back to the themes that we saw in Hippolyta's episode about the sacrifices that we make for our legacy, for our future, for our descendants, for our offspring, and how it's necessary. Those sacrifices that were made are in many ways necessary for our legacies to continue. But it was a very, very um, touching scene. Very sad to see him witness again the trauma of seeing his friend get shot right in front of him and know that he can't do anything about it. But then to have his son there, kind of like anchoring him. What was a really nice scene that was very well done is that we find out that the stranger who rescues Dora, George, and Montrose is actually Tick. He looks down, sees a bat, and he realizes that he is the Jackie Robinson type figure who comes and rescues them. This is a nod back to the dream sequence that he had in the very first episode, and it was a nice touch to see those things. Those of us who've been kind of examining that episode again and again and again to try to figure out like what parallels are there in that dream sequence to what we experience in the show. Back at Dora's house, Letty is with is going through the rooms trying to find the Book of Names, and the mob has reached the door of the home of Dora's family, and it's threatening them, throwing um, um, fire, into their homes and things like that. And her grandmother comes in the house, and she has to tell her, you know, I'm from the future, and I need the Book of Names in order to save your great grandson and your great great grandson, who I am now pregnant with. And we need this book to save also your great great niece, niece, kind of, sort of, your great great grandson's cousin. We, yeah, that it was it's confusing. Um, she convinces her to give her the Book of Names, and then they stand together. And this was the most difficult scene to watch, because as the house is burning down around them, and she wants to go save her family, she has to tell her, you can't change the future, because if you change the future, then Dora might not marry George, and the man that I love might not be born, and he's your great grandson, and then I would not be with pregnant with your great great grandson, and so you can't do anything, like, you have to die here. And that is like, imagine the weight of that, of first of all believing her out the gate anyway, but then secondly, knowing that you literally are consigning yourself to death in order for your descendants to survive. um and isn't that true for Black people especially? In many ways, they had to risk their lives and sometimes suffer in silence in order to hope for survival, if not for themselves, then for their descendants. And so, as the house is literally burning around them, as she is literally burning on fire, they begin to pray together. And Letty just has to sit there and watch this poor woman. And we don't really think about one of the things that struck me as interesting in this episode is we get to witness Montrose's kind of PTSD from not only the abuse and the trauma of his father, but also living through that night. And now, the question will be, what new PTSD, what new trauma will Letty have to deal with, having witnessed that? Well, Tick and Montrose get back to the portal, and the portal is weakening as Hippolyta is kind of losing control, running out of power, and is not able to stably control the portal. Tick jumps back in, which I was just like, why? I mean, it was somewhat necessary, I guess, in the sense of how much power would she have had? Okay, I'm looking at this from a writing standpoint. Y'all bear with me. How much strength would she have had in order to keep that portal open for as long as she kept it open? Did Tick need to jump back through the portal? And then the whole time in my mind, I'm literally screaming at him, because it's like, dude, your woman is still out there with your kid, and you're jumping into the portal, like, dude. And so I've been trying to stick with, like, Team Tick. Tick is not selfish. Tick is doing this to protect his son now that he knows that he's going to have one. But some of his choices just leave me, I know it's like a rock and a hard place, but it just leaves me like wanting him to just do better. Just do better, Tick. Just do better. So he goes in, tries to help Hippolyta kind of stay grounded, stay holding the portal open so Letty can get through. And then who is waltzing her tail down Main Street is Letty, as bombs, as fires, as gunfire is going off all around her, and she's just walking. And I know probably me and everybody else in America who was watching this show tonight was screaming at the TV, run, chick, run. It's such a startling contrast between the very first episode, where she did the Black woman thing that we always knew Black women would do when you put them in a horror situation, and she ran like her life depended on it, and she did not fall. And here we have her just kind of like walking very steadfast, very straightforward through fire, literally, through bombs, literally. But I wanted her to run. I wanted her to run. I know that, Misha had a vision that they were trying to execute, and the vision was her being strong. She's stable in the knowledge that she's protected, that she has the book of names. But this was not the time to walk slow, hun. It was not the time to walk slow. You should have been running like your drawers was on fire. um it did allow for us to experience the destruction of Tulsa. I did not cry. I was and am very angry. I'm gonna have to do some prayer tonight to not be to deal with my anger. I think back to a lot of other shows that have shown us massacres that have occurred. Rosewood comes to mind. And I will say that the image of Letty powerfully walking through the fire, making it out, protecting her legacy, protecting her son, was a powerful juxtaposition for the destruction and the chaos and the real lives that were lost and the way that that's portrayed on screen. And I will say that it brings to mind the idea that I think they were trying to remind us that some did survive, right? That obviously people did survive. And as horrific as it is to witness this, to know that it's happened, to know that that piece of heritage, that legacy was stolen, that those lives were taken so cruelly and maliciously without thought to their humanity, that happened, that there were survivors, and to rejoice in the survivors. I know that's what they were trying to do, but I'm still kind of pissed about it. Still kind of pissed. And the voiceover, Montrose is looking out the window, watching this destruction happen again. And I'm not sure if it's a poem that he's reciting or if it's actually like from news articles, but he's reciting like people, like events that actually happened at Tulsa, people who survived, people who helped protect people, things of that nature. It was a real teaching moment there. I will have to go back and watch that again and again and again because it was certainly reminding us about this history that is not taught in schools, that we have had to kind of self maintain, self teach. Now the world finally knows about Tulsa. Maybe people will remember and will, record will not record the history, but will like actually learn the true history. They make it out just in the nick of time, and we are left literally with Tick holding on to Hippolyta, whose hair has turned blue. She has become Orinthia Blue. Letty is underneath the table and clutching the book and literally looking like she has just gone through hell. And Montrose, who is also looking devastated from witnessing all of this trauma again. All of them having survived, but at what cost? Um, in terms of moving the plot forward, it got us the book. That was the part of the plot that moved forward. Um, this is just one of those shows that I think that I don't know what the new thing is with having 10 episodes to a season. I don't know why that's become the magic number, but this is one of those shows that definitely could have benefited from, like, let's say a 13 episode run, and then relax in the time a little bit and maybe let us live in the space, maybe having spent more time at the beginning with like dealing with some of the issues that are occurring, getting some more of the unpacking of all of the secrets that are kind of unraveling with the family, heading to Tulsa, maybe even leaving us with them not arriving, with them arriving but not making it, or maybe getting split up or something. I don't know. It just was rushed. It felt very hurried with not enough unpacked dialogue, and that leaves me questioning episode 10, because with the trailer for episode 10, a lot has to happen. I do think we will get a second season. So, but I hope that there is a finality in this season so that if something happens, this show feels complete, but it just feels like it could go on because there's maybe stuff that they haven't answered, if that makes sense. I hate when shows end on a cliffhanger and then something happens and they can't film, and then you don't have that completion that you want. Um, I will say it time and time again. I do think that the show is brilliant. I think that the way that they have expounded on the world of the novel is magnificent. It's so much more black, so much more black than what the book is. No offense to Mr. Ruff, but it just is. Um, it's so much more history embedded into it. Um, but you do get kind of a little bit of whiplash because every episode is dealing in a different genre. Um, and this time there was no horror from the monsters. There was no horror from, it was the very real human monsters and how we destroy each other that this episode really deals with. Um, all right, so that is my recap of it. In terms of things that we've seen, we did get kind of like so we get, I should say, we did get kind of an answer behind why Captain Lancaster has been like kind of chopping up black people. He has been doing it to continue living because it's been some type of restoration spell, and the stone that Christina had Ruby leave there negates that. And so now that he has fresh wounds, he will not be able to continue to live. And so it's obvious that that is the thing that has stopped him from regenerating, or from them being able to use his new parts to regenerate him. And so that did seemingly kill him. So we did get the disillusion of like that as a big bad character. Which leads me thinking that we will end up with Christina as the big bad. But I still feel like the way that they're handling her relationship with Ruby makes me side eye that and wonder if we're going to see, some kind of change in her, where we're going to get an emergence of a different threat that will then put her in some type of good terms with the rest of the crew. Um, Ruby Ruby is a mess. And I will say Ruby is a mess because she is very naively believing everything that Christina is telling her. And she feels like Christina has not lied to her. And so she has no reason to distrust her. But for the same reasons why she takes Letty to task, it's like pot, meat, kettle. Um, she did call Letty on her stuff, which needed to be said, right? Needed to be said, like, you are bugging. You are, flipping over backwards for this man, putting yourself at risk, and for what? Like, y'all haven't even told each other you love each other. Like, do you love him? Has he claimed you? Like, what? Um, and it was so interesting because when they were in Tulsa, Letty finally admits that she is in love with Tick. Which I'm like, girl, you done got pregnant with his seed, so I hope that those feelings are strong for him. She told the wrong one, but I hope that they don't do the thing where she tells him first. I'm gonna be giving them this stink eye right here, like this one right here. That's what's gonna happen because I don't. He needs to get his stuff together. He needs to tell his woman he loves her, and he needs to be willing to risk his life for her, and not just because she's carrying his child, but because of her, because she done risked her life for him and then got shot. So yeah, it was. I mean, it was a good episode, but I wasn't like, I don't feel as excited as I did with like episode 3 or episode 7. Now I'm just like, oh, what's gonna happen? So that is it. Like I said, I know that this was not my usual thing because I've been trying to like group characters together, and I kind of just gave y'all chronological order to the best of my ability. Again, beautiful episode, beautifully cinematography wise, beautiful costume wise, beautiful, a bit rushed for me, but I think that it is of course the setup for next week's episode. So we will see. um let me know down in the comments below what you thought. Were there some things that I missed? Did you like the episode? Did you cry? First and foremost, did you cry? I'm gonna go back and add that to the beginning. Did you cry? That's what I really want to know. And let me know down below in the comments what you thought. What do you think is going to happen next week? It is we have 7 days left to make predictions, guys, and then we'll know. So make your predictions down below. And until next time, please do me a favor, hit the like and subscribe button. I know this was a long video, but this was a lot to unpack. And until next time, guys, toodles.